It is a feature of the preaching in the book of Acts that there is far more about the resurrection than we tend to have in our preaching. I think one of the reasons for that is because initially, as they were speaking to a predominantly Jewish audience, there would have been an understanding of what it meant that Jesus had been raised from the dead. In the Old Testament, there's an expectation that at the end of time, God would raise up all people. There'd be a general resurrection as part of God's judgment. Daniel 12 talks about people being raised up, some to everlasting life, some to everlasting contempt. So that a resurrection has happened is very significant in the book of Acts. We're told that they were preaching that in Jesus was the resurrection of the dead. So they weren't just teaching that Jesus rose again, but what that meant in terms of the coming judgment, the significance that the resurrection of the dead has now begun. So Paul talks in Acts 17 about how the resurrection is the proof that God will judge the world with justice by the man he's appointed, that being Jesus. So they were very much more aware, I think, than sometimes we are today of what it really meant theologically that Jesus rose again, what it said about the coming judgment, God's purposes, the stage in human history that we were now in. In Britain, if you're in a pub and it's coming up to closing time, the guy who runs the pub will ring a bell and say time at the bar, and you have 10 or 15 minutes to make any final transactions you want to make, buy a last drink. I don't know if you have that phrase, that custom in the US in a bar, but it's called giving notice. So time at the bar, ring a bell, time at the bar. And the resurrection is God, if you like, giving notice that the judgment will come. So now is the time to be right with God. Now is the time to settle up and to make sure that you have got yourself sorted out with Him.